On today's show, another missed opportunity for the Hawks at home against Memphis Grizzlies, falling in close-fought fashion. We'll get into all of what transpired, how close it actually was to getting over the top, struggles, strengths, weaknesses, all that fun stuff, and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1439 of Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you deep into the evening on a Sunday night into Monday. And today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you're first time using with PrizePicks, you have to 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. I also want to tell you at the top of the podcast to encourage you, especially to subscribe to the podcast and make us your first listen each and every day. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And I do thank you for listening to the show on this fine Sunday into Monday. Today's show is going to be getting into what became a 123-119 loss for the Hawks at home against the Grizzlies on a Sunday evening. And really, it was a game that was a toss-up in some respects. The Hawks never led after the first quarter, but they were certainly within striking distance the entire game. They were never down by more than 9 points the entire way, and they had opportunities. And that's kind of the theme of the entire day for me anyway, was that the Hawks just – it's another example of this game. There's probably 10 of these this year, maybe even more than that, where the Hawks had chances to win a game down the stretch and in the fourth quarter, and they just couldn't ever quite get over the finish line. And yes, it was a game in which the Hawks were underdogs at FanDuel in this one. They were playing on the second night of back-to-back, so I'll be the first to tell you that this is not a game that the Hawks were quote-unquote supposed to win, but it was a game that they could have won at different times. And they were right there in the middle of it. They had an opportunity. They had a chance to kind of steal one, in my estimation, against a team that had a couple injuries. The Hawks were largely at full strength in this game. We'll get into that later on as well. But, big picture, another loss for the Hawks and below 500 again at 37-38. Only 7 games remaining in the season. It has gone quickly, but for the Hawks, it's not been what they definitely envisioned heading into the season. I have not been leading with the standings very much on this podcast, and I will talk about the game itself in a moment. But first, it's a good time to kind of examine where the Hawks are, because it's now really a danger zone for Atlanta after this game and after all of what happens on Sunday. So the Raptors won, the Bulls won, the Nets did lose, but the Heat were off today. And with all those results, plus the Hawks lost, the Hawks are now tied with Toronto for the 8th seed in the East. Now, the good news is the Hawks have a tiebreaker with the Raptors. That's positive. But the bigger issue now is that the Bulls are playing great, and the Hawks are only a half game ahead of Chicago. So that means there's a real chance the Hawks could get down to 9 or even 10 in the standings. Now, I think the play-in is it's not a lock, but it's certainly close to a lock at this point. The Hawks would have to go and totally in the tank to fall out of the top 10. But the gap between being the 7 or 8 seed and another 10 seed is pretty big, especially if it's a 10 seed, because you're going on the road for a 1-game sample size there. So part of the problem with being 37-38 is that the Hawks have basically been a 500 middling team all year long. But there is a much better chance, I think people are realizing, that the Hawks could be facing elimination in a 1-game sample size, even potentially on the road, in about 2.5 weeks. So a lot could change between now and then. They could obviously go the other way and win some games. But for the standings, kind of the way that it broke down and with the way that Chicago was playing, the way that Toronto was playing, the Hawks are kind of in some no man's land right now when it comes to the pecking order in the East. As far as the game is concerned, I want to start defensively, because even if there were some offensive issues that the Hawks definitely had in this game, I think defensively was the bigger problem, and that's been a familiar refrain in recent days. The Hawks had a 121 defensive rating in this game against a pretty ordinary, they're not bad, but Memphis' offense is like league average. They're not fantastic on offense. They're more of a defensive first team this year, and the Grizzlies did shoot the ball very well in this game. They were 54% from the floor. They had 28 assists, more than 60 points in the paint in this one. Only 5 turnovers in the last 3 quarters from Memphis in this game as well. The Hawks did rebound the ball very well on the glass, and they didn't foul a lot, which is obviously a positive thing. But it was kind of the same old story on the perimeter, because no one was playing well enough to contain penetration. Even with DeAndre Hunter back after a 1-game absence, he was probably not his full strength in this game. If you watched him, he was not moving super well in this game. And then all the other personnel challenges were definitely sort of rearing their heels in this one. The Hawks centers played really well in this game. Collins was fine at the 4 defensively as well, especially Kongwu and Capela at the back end. But the perimeter defensive resistance was familiarly bad for the Hawks in this game. It definitely cost them in this spot. By the numbers, the offense was more than good enough for the Hawks in this game. They had a 117 offensive rating against Memphis. And given what I'm about to tell you, that Memphis was as a top 3 defensive team in the league this year. They are that good defensively. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a potential defensive player of the year candidate for the Grizzlies. And if the Hawks are going to score at that kind of clip against this great defense, they have to win the game. And they just didn't win the game in this game. Now, I will say the Hawks did not play perfectly on offense by any means. They didn't shoot the ball well at all in this game. 7 of 31 from 3. Now, that's obviously a little bit of – I'll always be the first person to stress this. Three-point shooting can be variable. Obviously, you want to take more and make more than the team, but at the same time, you are potentially prone to some bad shooting nights on occasion. Now, so that's part of it. The Hawks were okay from 2, about league average in this game, a little bit more than that maybe. They did have 27 assists and 10 turnovers, which is actually a great ratio, especially if you can't make a jump shot. To have 27 assists is pretty impressive. But here's a crazy stat. The Hawks were 18 of 51 from outside the rim area per cleaning the glass. So basically, any shot outside of about 4 feet, the Hawks shot like 35%. And you're going to lose if that's the case. Now, the reason why the Hawks were able to even stick in the game was because they killed it on the glass in this game. 14 offensive rebounds and 31 second chance points. That is a sky-high number. Like, the league leader in the league has like 16 a game, 17 in the game. So they doubled that up. They also won the possession battle considerably in this game. They took 7 more free throws than the Grizzlies did. So the Hawks effectively had like 12 or 13 extra shooting possessions in this game to kind of bridge the gap between their bad shooting and Memphis' good shooting. We'll get into it later on the show, obviously, but the execution late was definitely not very good. And it's still a team that plays either like lineups that are like too offense focused and that can shoot, or they're playing lineups that have challenges in shooting. It didn't help as well that Dejounte Murray is having a long slump right now, and he and DeAndre Hunter couldn't make a shot in this game. But even the best shooters on the roster, Bogey, Sadiq Bey, AJ Griffin, those guys combined to shoot 2 of 12 from 3 in this game as well. So it was basically everyone. No one was making shots in this one. And I still believe that defensively it was more of a problem than the offense. But there were definitely issues on offense as well when they couldn't get it done either. And again, at crunch time, a couple bad shots. Trey took one that was pretty bad at the end of the game. We'll come back to later on. But it was definitely both sides. But certainly I would still lean toward the defense being the bigger problem. That's been really the case for a while now. And I'm not going to say this on every single podcast, but I've been doing it for a while now. The Hawks basically have a top 5 offense in the league after the All-Star break, which is essentially the Quinn Snyder era. The Hawks are, in fact, number 2 in the league right now, post All-Star break in offensive rating, a 121 offensive rating. But unfortunately, the Hawks have an 8-8 record because they can't get stops. Top 3 offense, bottom 5 defense. And that's kind of more in line with last year's team that was awesome on offense, bad defense, but obviously that did not work at the highest levels last year either. And questions abound as we move forward. But anyway, we'll leave it there for now. We'll get into how this game kind of unfolded in a second. But first, a word from our sponsors on the podcast today. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you enjoy daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the award-winning app at PrizePicks. PrizePicks DFS made easy. It's amazing. I know that you'll love it as well. It is very easy to use PrizePicks. I've been playing there for a couple of years now. Honestly, it's been a breeze and really an enjoyable time with PrizePicks. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players. Actually choose one that have more or less than a certain number of points or rebounds or assists, other stats across the board, and the PrizePicks went to 25 times the money on your entries. It's that simple. They offer numbers in any sport you can think of or that you might enjoy. Beyond the NBA, of course, which they definitely have, college basketball, NFL, college football, MLB, NHL, PGA, soccer, esports, and much more. And a whole entry could be done in just a minute or less. It is that quick and that easy. Plus, it's just you against the numbers. They have safe and fast withdrawals at PrizePicks, and they're operating in more than 30 states. That includes Georgia, plus Canada. At this point, download the PrizePicks app right now. Or go to PrizePicks.com, sign up by DFS for free. And if you are a first-time user, get 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. Don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On. One more time, that is promo code Locked On at sign up for the instant deposit match up to $100. Check it out now at PrizePicks. So in recent days, it's been a lot of hot starts from the offense. Not so much in this game. The Hawks were 6 of 17 from the floor out of the gate in this one, 0-5 from 3. Kind of a weird, like, scattershot pace in this game, kind of like hasty at the outset of this game. But the actions for the Hawks were not particularly crisp. I didn't think some pretty bad passes, like errant passes, like even delivering them to the right place. And they're down by 6 by the middle of the first quarter. Rotationally, no huge surprises, although they did go to Aaron Holiday for a brief period of time in the second quarter. It was kind of a surprising outcome. But other than that, it was kind of what you would expect. The 9 guys who have been playing when Jalen Johnson has been out were playing in this game. The Hawks did stay in touch, again, with the rebounding battle leading their way. And the Grizzlies kind of had some unforced errors. They had an inbound violation, a carry, and a backcourt violation in the first, 8 minutes of the game. That's a pretty crazy sample size. But the Hawks did not score very well in the first quarter. Sub point per possession. That's obviously pretty bad. They were 1 of 9 from floater range in the first quarter. And despite the extra possessions, they were not able to kind of hold up. It went to the Murray plus bench unit in the second quarter, and it was Bogey was pretty hot early on. He had actually 2 threes early. Everybody else was 0 of 8 from 3. Kind of an odd sub for Aaron, but it kind of made sense if you really had a big picture, kind of maybe to throw a wrinkle at John Morant. But Sadiq Bey had a couple of dunks in the second quarter that was nice to see, but the Hawks were getting killed from deep. Memphis hit 9 threes in the first 17 minutes, and they cooled off a lot after that, but the damage is kind of done in some respects. There was a fun back and forth between Capela and Jaren Jackson, where Capela had a nice block on Jackson at the rim and then actually had a second chance bucket on the other end of the floor. DeAndre Hunter, though, struggled badly in the first half, I thought. He was, I think, 1 of 8 from the floor at one point, out of sorts completely. He did have one drive where he seemed to got fouled and didn't get the call. But other than that, defensively, he was kind of shaky. I'm going to guess he was not feeling 100% in this game after missing Saturday's game with a knee contusion. He was a game-time decision in this game. That's not an excuse. It's just kind of the reality. He didn't play very well in the first half. He's better in the second half. Still not a good game overall for DeAndre. Collins got fouled really hard by Jaren Jackson in the final minute of the first half. Landed pretty hard, got up, seemed to be okay, which is a positive thing. But the Grizzlies got 2 technical fouls in a row on the play. That was a little bit strange. And then Taylor Jenkins, former Hawks assistant, that's the Memphis head coach, challenged the play. And honestly, I was stunned that they won the challenge. Now, I don't think it would have been crazy to have that be a no call in real time. But the fact that they overturned it from a foul to a non-foul blew me away. Now, number one, it was kind of a weird challenge because it was in the first half. It was a 2-point attempt, and Jackson wasn't in foul trouble either. So it was a pretty low leverage challenge, number one. And then I thought just naturally that they were going to lose it because there was not enough evidence that I saw to overturn the play. Now, I don't want to litigate it too much, but I will say it was wild that Jaren Jackson even got to that play. It was actually a pretty impressive recovery from him. But I think for me, it was a foul. And number two, even if you didn't think it was a blatant foul, the standard to overturn a call means that it has to be clear and evident, and it was not clear and evident. So that was a weird play. And in a close game, that ended up mattering, I think, at least on some level. So anyway, Hawks down by 5 at the half. Offensively, it was pretty rough early on. They got better as the game went along. They did have 20 second chance points in the first half, just for comparison's sake. That is more than NBA teams average in a full game. The league leader averages less than that in a full game. So pretty crazy there. But early in the third quarter, the Hawks did tie the game. And as I said before, the Hawks never led after it was 14-12 in the first quarter. That was the case, but they did tie several times in the second half, just never got over the top. Trey took actually his first 3-point attempts of the whole game in the third quarter to cap that run and force a timeout. But then Memphis kind of had a couple of nice runs. Trey started taking more threes, actually took 4 in the first 7 minutes, made 3 of them. Hunter had a couple of nice finishes after a disastrous start. And I thought it was encouraging. We stayed aggressive in this game. There was a rough foul by Kong with the buzzer in the third quarter to give Memphis a 7-point lead. Trey had 13 and 5 in the third quarter alone. That was his best quarter by far. But unfortunately, as the Hawks made shots more, Memphis made a lot of shots. They shot 65% from the floor in the third quarter. In the fourth, it was an 8-2 run by the Hawks out of the gate to go back within 1 again. A nice play by Sadiq Bey to finish through contact for 3-point play. But then their biggest run of the game for Memphis anyway, the second half, was a 14-6 push by the Grizzlies to break things open a little bit. The Hawks were, again, it was between a tie game and a 9-point deficit for the entirety of second half. Pretty crazy. Anyway, Murray made his first 3 of the game with about 4 minutes to go. He had been really cold. We'll come back to that later on, but he had been 4 of his last 37 from 3 before that make. Yes, 4 of 37. The Hawks were back within 3, though, with 3.5 minutes to go. Out of a timeout, Trey took a very bad 3. It was clocked as a 35-footer by the broadcast. By the stat broadcast. So I'm not sure that was 100% accurate, but still, it was pretty deep. That being an ATO play, I'm sure not what they wanted at that point in time. Then they fouled Ja. So I should say Trey fouled Ja in the possession for 3-point shooting foul. So a huge swing there, all kind of by Trey, unfortunately. They did get back to the line on the next trip. But after Dejounte missed a pull-up 18-footer, Memphis scored, and it was a 7-point deficit with 1:40 to go. So their best opportunity at that point was probably gone. They did have a couple chances late. Capela had a great block on Desmond Bane with about 30 seconds to go. That led to a 3 by Hunter off of a pass by Trey with 23 seconds left. But still, down 3 with 1 possession remaining, basically. That's still a tough spot. Now, they had to foul but they waited so long. It was kind of a weird play where like they kind of were in between, like, fouling automatically or trapping or whatever, and they just kind of waited, like they burned like 10 seconds. Did it matter? Maybe not, but still unfortunate that they did that. Tyus Jones made 1 of 2 to kind of put the game like at least kind of in the balance still. The Hawks tried a quick 2 attempt. It didn't work. And after that, they ended up losing the game by 4 points. So back and forth wise, like they had opportunities. I think the Trey 3-pointer that was pretty rough. Dejounte had a pretty rough pull-up 18-footer that he probably shouldn't have taken, nor obviously he missed it. So also Collins missed a free throw at that point in time. I will say Memphis kind of let the Hawks back, sort of hang into it with some missed free throws of their own, but it was not well executed down the stretch from Atlanta, offensively or defensively. A couple of breakdowns there. I think Capela did his best to kind of make up for some of that in the back end, but Memphis just was a better team at the end of the game, and that led to the Hawks losing in this one in close fought fashion. All right, we'll have one more segment coming with my player evaluations from this contest and more. But first, a word from our sponsors on the podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar, and the Built March Madness bracket is here and still ongoing right now. I'm sure you have a favorite Built Bar or Built Puff flavor, and now is the time to make that opinion widely known and make it actually count for you. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com. Vote for your favorites right now. If you listen to the show for a while, you will probably know my favorite flavor is cookies and cream. So if you want to support that flavor, it's definitely an option for you, but there's also your own personal preferences along the way. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 of our Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built Bars sent to them. Not only that, one fan will get a 12-month subscription to Built Bars to have bars, puffs, etc. delivered monthly straight to their door. And if you haven't tried Built Bar yet, I'm not sure what you're waiting on. Please don't wait any longer. They taste awesome, and they won't even believe that they're good for you as well. Every bar is high in protein and low in sugar and have 100% real chocolate on the outside. BuiltMarchMadness.com is the place to go right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff. Pick up a box while you're there as well. Vote every single day in March. So hop in now and support your pick at BuiltMarchMadness.com. All right, and to the players in this game, 10 guys appeared. Aaron Holiday played 4 minutes. Did not register in the box score other than +3 in the plus-minus, so I don't have much to say there. AJ Griffin had a pretty rough game. I thought 2 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist for AJ, 1 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 1 from 3. I think that part of why they tried Aaron was because AJ was not playing well in the first half. He wasn't like awful, but he was not good in this game. Obviously, that's okay. He's been playing really well the last couple of weeks, but not anything fantastic here. Saddiq Bey had kind of a mixed bag game. He was 4 of 7 on 2s, but 0 of 4 on 3s. Had 3 rebounds and an assist, turnover, and defensively was, as he has been since he got to the Hawks, pretty rough in this game. Bogey had 2 threes early and then missed his last 4. He was 4 of 9 from the floor, had 10 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Defensively, was a step slow. And I'll just do this now. Bogey was questionable on the injury report coming into the game with a knee question of some kind. Now, the knees have been his problem area with the Hawks. I have been on record before this, and I'll say it again now. I don't think Bogey should be playing back-to-backs, at least this year, if not moving forward. And I think especially if there's any question at all, I don't know why you play Bogey at this point. Not because he's terrible, but because anytime he plays on second, not even back-to-back, he kind of looks a step slow. And also, at this juncture of the season, like with all due respect to the Hawks being 37-38, like they're not in the middle of a title run right now. So like pushing Bogey, who you just signed for 4 years, like doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially because, again, there's some question about whether he was going to be able to play because he was questionable until the very end. They upgraded DeAndre Hunter about an hour before tip-off, and Bogey was still questionable and being like observed by the training staff. Like, if there's ever any doubt at all, why is he playing? I don't understand that. So I'll be the first to admit I'm not a medical expert, nor is anybody on the outside. Always stuff we don't know, but I don't understand like the common sense of that, to be honest with you. But anyway, he didn't play very well, and that's maybe partly because he was not 100% springy in this game. Okongwu played well again, 13 points, 7 rebounds, and a block for Onyeka. He made all 6 of his shots, 19 minutes. Thought he played well. We'll stay with the centers because I think the centers were the best part of the team for the Hawks in this game for the most part. I thought Capela was awesome in this game, honestly, because that was obviously nice to see beyond just everything else. But I've kind of been preaching patience with Capela. Like, I think there's like a growing movement among Hawks fans to start Onyeka or like fire Clinton to the sun at this point, and that's just not necessary. I think both can be true. Okongwu's playing great, and that's great to see. But also, Clint is still a really good basketball player. 18 points, 16 rebounds, 4 blocks in 29 minutes. He was awesome in this game, especially in the first half, flying around. Best he's looked in a while. That was good to see across the board. Everybody else, though, other than maybe Trey, was not fantastic in the starting lineup. I thought Collins was fine. 9 points, 10 rebounds for Collins. Defensively, he did his job. 4 of 10 on twos is not usually what he's going to be able to do. Only took 1 3. I think he was probably the third best starter behind Capela and Trey, but that's kind of a low bar to clear. I don't think he was like good in this game. He was just kind of like maybe a C plus kind of game for John in this game. Hunter was aggressive for sure. Took 20 shots. I don't know why there would ever be a night when Hunter is their leading shot taker, especially when he's not had it going, but he definitely was aggressive in this game. 17 points on 20 shots. He was 7 of 12 on twos. That's actually good to see. He started attacking more. That was probably encouraging on some level. 1 of 8 from 3. Defensively, not quite as good as he usually is. Had 2 steals. Other than that, though, 2 assists and a turnover. I don't think he played that badly, but in the first half, it was really rough. Second half, he was better, but just processing stuff is always a little bit of lag time on what he sees and what he actually acts on, etc. I don't think he played very well in this game on the whole. And then Dejounte has been really struggling. 13 points and 9 assists. That's good to see after a big game on Saturday with passing. But shooting-wise, it's been pretty bad for a while. So he has 8 straight games now with sub 40% shooting. That's not great. That's from the field, not from 3. Also, even with the 3 he made late tonight, he has 5 of his last 38 from 3. And the last 10 games, he is 36% from the floor and 13% from 3. So, that's going to happen sometime. I think Murray's still like at his career average true shooting, which is not great, which is part of the problem with Dejounte. Part of the question is that he's not a very efficient shooter. And he'll have hot streaks. That 10-game stretch that I just referenced came right after his huge career night against Portland. So it'll get better, I'm confident, but he was hurting them on offense in this game pretty clearly. A couple bad pull-ups, not shooting the ball well with confidence, etc. So we'll see how he's been. We'll see if he bounced back from this on Tuesday. But for a while now, a couple of weeks, he's been pretty rough offensively, and that definitely is hurting the Hawks. And then defensively, not a ton to speak of there. So, and then Trey will kind of end with 28 and 10 for Trey. Had the big third quarter, got to the line 12 times. It was kind of just a solid Trey game. I don't think he was fantastic. And then at the end of the game, a couple of blunders from him. So, I think Trey has had a good rep for his late game performances in previous years. I think this year, this is more anecdotal than anything else, but I don't think he's had the best clutch situations this year on the whole. And, when you're a superstar player, you get judged differently than everybody else. I think Trey played well overall. I think other than Capela and Okongwu, he was their best player in this game. It's just that he it's again a credit to him that he can have 28 and 10 and not be like lighting the world on fire. But I think he was pretty good. He wasn't fantastic. I will say he was awesome in the third quarter for sure. But, it was okay. It was okay Trey standards. Not great, not bad, etc. Okay, so last thing before we get out of here, the Hawks play again on Tuesday. That is a tough game. Is the Cavs coming to town? It is at home. Cleveland, though, is a top 4 team in the East this year. The Cavs are playing quality basketball. They won tonight against Houston, so whatever that means. But the good thing is for the Hawks, Cleveland's been very ordinary on the road. They're 30 and 8 at home, but they're 18 and 20 on the road. So that's an encouraging thing. They have won 4 games in a row overall. And in general, the Hawks have matched up decently against the Cavs in previous years. But that's a big one on the horizon for Atlanta. They're not like a direct competitor because Cleveland's going to be in top 4 of the East, it looks like, at this point in time. But as the Hawks' schedule comes together, these last 7 games, the biggest game by far remaining on the schedule now, in my mind, is the Chicago game on Tuesday, the 4th. But in the meantime, the Hawks have basically no easy games left. Their only remaining like easy games on the schedule in the last couple of weeks were the Spurs game they lost in brutal fashion, the Pistons game, and the Pacers game. Now, they won those games, but now it's Cleveland at home, at Brooklyn, home for Dallas, at Chicago. Washington's pretty not great, but that's a back-to-back. And then Philly and at Boston. So, there are no gimmies on the schedule anymore for the Hawks. And given where they have to be and where they kind of have to go at this point in time, that's a game it'd be nice to steal that one on Tuesday. We'll see if they're able to do that, but we'll keep an eye on that in the future. And that's their next game on the agenda. As for this podcast, please subscribe to the show across podcast platforms, and we'll be here throughout the run. If we're a new listener, I definitely welcome you to the show. What we do here is break down every game on the show, as well as we have some guests on, mailbags, analysis, all that fun stuff. You'll have more of this and more of me in the near future. We don't go anywhere even when the offseason begins as well. Draft coverage, free agency, all that. So we definitely encourage you to subscribe and stick around with us. We'll have full coverage of the game on Tuesday. We'll have multiple shows this week besides that, because then after Tuesday, they have 2 days off, and then they go to Brooklyn on Friday. So only a 2-game week, quote unquote, for Atlanta coming up. So we'll have other non-game content, but please subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend about the podcast. Also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me on Twitter at BT Rowland. Follow my written work over at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast today, and we'll see you all next time.